Welcome back to Old School Sports and our OOTP 23 playthrough of the Kansas City Royals. We are at the start of the 2036 season, and the Royals are headed for hopefully another playoff appearance as we try to complete a three-peat. Would be the first three-peat in Major League Baseball in 36 years if we can do it since the 98, 99, and 2000 New York Yankees. So Royals making a run at history this year, hopefully. Taking a look at the season, we'll run the preseason predictions and expected to have a big year. 108 and 54 record expected for Kansas City, at least in this simulation, which would be by far the best record in the American League and by far the best record in baseball. So hopefully the Royals can clinch another American League Central title. They've won it 9 out of the past 10 seasons, and hopefully we can clinch home field advantage throughout the playoffs also. Those are our two primary goals as the season begins, and embedded in those goals are hoping to stay relatively healthy and having a healthy team when we get to the postseason, if we do get there. Right now we're in good shape health-wise. Willie Flores, starting second baseman, a little bit banged up day to day with knee tendonitis for 3 days, but hopefully that's nothing that's going to be a major issue. And the key question for this season is going to be, well, among the key questions for this season are going to be, what do we get out of Bobby Witt Jr.? 35 years old now, going to turn 36 in a couple of months. He has not... He's only played 130 games in a season once in the past 5 years, and he hasn't reached 500 at-bats in either of the past 3 seasons. Given that his ratings are still above average, although he's certainly trending towards being a more average-type player, especially defensively, his range has really weakened over the last few years. His arm is not as strong as it is. He didn't win the Gold Glove for third base last season for the first time in quite a while, and seems unlikely to win any more Gold Gloves. We had signed him over a season ago to hopefully what will be with his final extension with us, a 6-year extension. He made $40 million last year. And although he wasn't a Gold Glove winner, he was an all-star. He was a Silver Slugger winner. He won the MVP of the Division Series, and he helped lead the Royals to a World Championship. So it was certainly money well spent. You can see that the amount we're paying him is going to be contracting over the next few years, which, given the way his ratings are also contracting, is probably a good thing. We'll definitely be overpaying him, and we kind of knew we would be doing this as we headed into the contract, but what we've decided is that we are going to run through this playthrough for the entirety of Bobby Witt Jr.'s career with the Royals, so that kind of necessitated that we do what we need to do to get him signed. But would certainly love to see 130-plus games from Bobby Witt Jr. and a hopefully mostly healthy season from him. And the even bigger injury issue or potential injury issue that we're dealing with is Ben Borgman. He's now wrecked physically. He was the Cy Young Award winner in 2034. Last year pitched just 6 games during the regular season at the major league level. We have cut his pitch count down to just 80 in an effort to hopefully keep him healthy. We've got the rookie Marco Estrada as our 5th starter this year. Another rookie, Dan Keogh, could potentially fill in as another starter for us. So we do have arms for if and when we have injuries, but the hopeful goal with Borgman is to get 25-plus starts, 125, 130-plus innings out of him, and have him be healthy for the playoffs. He's probably going to get banged up at some point during the year, but I think he still has the stuff to be a pretty effective pitcher. Although you can see that his fastball is beginning to lose a little bit. Going to be more reliant on that excellent changeup and an above-average curve, but his stuff is not as great as it used to be. He's definitely more of a control pitcher at this point at 34 years old. We've got him at $19.5 million for this year. and then he's got an option for next year, which presumably at this point in his career he'll exercise. I guess if he has a very healthy and effective season, there's a chance that he won't exercise that option. We'll deal with that obviously in October and November. But with Borgman with a player option, and then with Bryce Hillman, who we traded for from the Pirates a season ago, in the potential last years of their contracts, definitely have potential for some changes in our starting rotation next year, which is why it's going to be pretty important to us to see what both Marco Estrada and Dan Keogh can do at the major league level this year. And with that as the backdrop, we are going to kick off this 2036 season. Take a quick look at who's on the waiver wire. Actually, a couple of potentially interesting pitchers. Rodrigo Nadal looks like a replacement level guy, not really all that exciting. Michael Fulgham's got a little potential to even be a little better than he looks right now, at least according to our scout. Not a bad pitcher, making the major league minimum. He was pretty effective with the Dodgers last year, too. Put up a 187 ERA plus and a 67 FIP minus, 1.5 WAR. He's really kind of an interesting right-handed pitcher out of the bullpen, and he's making the major league minimum. He might be worth a claim. Decent personality. He's okay to be in the bullpen. Take a look at the back end of our pitching rotation, and it's guys like Bryce Hubbard, maybe Matt Thompson, who was our Rule 5 acquisition. I kept Hubbard up to have 4 lefties and 4 righties out of the bullpen, but I don't know exactly what I will do if claim for Fulgham goes through, but I think I'm at the very least going to try to do it. We'll see what happens. And it appears that someone else was interested in Fulgham also, so I didn't get the claim for him to go through. Obviously, coming off of a World Championship season with the best regular season record in the league, anyone in the league was going to be able to take him if they wanted to before he got to us, and it seems like that is what happened. Still listed with the Dodgers now, but we'll see where he ends up eventually. And here on April 6th, Royals off to a 4-4 start, already 2 games behind in the AL Central, and the first injury issue of the season, Caleb Lagerwell, coming off possibly the best season of his excellent career when he was 15-7 with a 3.15 ERA, named to the All-Star team for the 3rd time last year. Going to be out with elbow inflammation for 5 to 6 weeks. His injury proneness has been normal, but as a player who's closing in on 34 years old, it's not going to shock me if at some point with these little injuries he comes back as fragile. Obviously, we'll deal with that if that does happen. We are going to place him on the IL, which will give us an opportunity to call up someone to help from AAA and also kind of revamp the rotation and see who Bobby Crosby is going to slide into the number 5 spot in the rotation for us. And Bob Williams, who's been on the team for the past several years, was one of our final cuts coming out of spring training. We'll bring Williams back up, give him an opportunity to see what he can do, kind of revamping the pitching now that we've lost our number 1 starter. And now they're going to use Marco Estrada as a follower and push Chris Rutledge, who we picked up in a trade with Miami, into the rotation. I don't know if I love that. I think I almost want to see what Dan Keogh can do if he's starting regularly. And I think we're starting to know what he can do because he doesn't have great movement and he doesn't throw all that hard. So he's now given up 9 home runs in 22 innings pitched at the major league level. So I think even though he was a second round draft pick of ours back in 2028, I think it's starting to become clear that the movement that he has is just so poor that he may not be that effective of a major league pitcher. But by the same token, I want to maybe give him a fair shake at least and see if we can see what he does starting for the next couple of weeks, giving him consistent pitching every 5 days. So I may force start him into the rotation for us. And we have revamped things, so Keogh is going to be the 5th starter in our rotation. We'll see what he can do over the next couple of weeks. Our manager still has Marco Estrada in this silly follower role. I'm just an old cranky guy, so it just kind of seems like nonsense to me. But if that's what Bobby Crosby wants to do, he's been our manager for 2 seasons now, and he's won 2 world championships. So we will defer to him on exactly how he wants to deploy these players, as long as these are the 5 pitchers who are getting the significant innings pitched over the next few weeks. And we've now simmed ahead to the beginning of May. After that 4-4 start, you can see things have gone very well for the Royals. A 22-10 record, which, excuse me, is not the best record in baseball, as the Cubs are 25-7, but we're still up 6.5 games on both the Tigers and White Sox. You can see Jonathan Ojeda, after hitting 51 home runs and leading the league as a rookie last year, leading the league with 14 so far this year, also leading the league in OPS. Not a lot of other Royals among the league leaders. He's really the only one. That being said, still some good news. Marco Estrada, our young pitcher, 3.53 ERA in 35 2/3 innings, 4-1 record for the Royals, and he was named the Rookie of the Month. So good to see him performing pretty effectively, even though he's only technically started 1 game because he's a follower rather than a starter. But our number 1 draft pick back in 2031, who we think can be a pretty respectable major league starter, off to a good start here in 2036 at the age of 23. Checking in on a couple of the other key players. Ben Borgman, not pitching a ton of innings. You can see he's only averaging 5 innings a game, so he's only been involved in 1 decision. But he has been healthy for 7 games, 1-0 record with a 3.79 ERA. If we can keep him healthy to the postseason, that would be a big goal for us. Bryce Hillman and Eddie Chavera both kind of have put up ugly ERAs so far in the early stages of the season, particularly given that we're 22-10. You would think with a starter with a 7.33 ERA and a starter with a 6.16 ERA, it's going to be pretty hard to have a winning percentage of close to 700. But my assumption is that the Royals' bats have been making up for that. And you can see Dan Keogh, the youngster, 3-2 record with a 5.01 ERA. Started 5 games since we moved him into the rotation. Really just kind of want to see exactly what we have with him. As we've talked about, I think home runs are always going to be an issue with him, and it's been brutal so far with 12 and 32 1/3 innings pitched. It's probably going to limit his career at this point, but want to give him the opportunity to kind of see if maybe he can get better and improve his movement, working with the coaches here at the major league level and just kind of growing up as a pitcher. But if he doesn't improve that movement, it's going to be tough for him to maintain a major league job over the long term, simply because you can't have someone giving up that many dingers. Checking in on the lineup, Bobby Witt Jr., obviously the guy we're trying to push towards the Hall of Fame. You can see he's hitting only .216 this year, and he's got a negative WAR, as his defense is not what it used to be. He does have 8 home runs in 125 at-bats, but he's not hitting all that well, and you can see according to his profile here, it seems like he is he's really regressing pretty quickly. Best case scenario you can kind of make with this profile is maybe he's an average-ish major league player at this point in terms of his offense, which obviously is going to start getting expensive for us at $37 million this year, 35 next year before, or it might be 34 next year. Yeah, 34 next year before the numbers start coming down. But as I said, we knew we were going to be overpaying for him. We kind of wanted some kind of plan for this sim a few seasons ago, and we just kind of decided we're going to play through Bobby Witt Jr.'s entire career and see what he can do in hopefully 18 or 19 years with the Royals. But if he keeps kind of regressing this way, who knows how long he's really going to stick around before he potentially retires. Looking at the scouting from him, even in the middle of last year, his contact was in the mid-60s. Now it's a 50. His power has weakened a bit. His eye not as good, and clearly his defense has really deteriorated over the last few years. So he's our starting third baseman for the foreseeable future, but definitely is somebody who we're overpaying at this point. But if I wanted to build a super team, I would have obviously moved on from him and just done that. Part of the fun of the sim is kind of playing it the way that we want to play, and we'll see if we can kind of keep Bobby Witt Jr. healthy over these final years of his career and hopefully have him continue to be a somewhat productive player and put up some numbers that will help him in his quest to become a Hall of Famer. I think the 3,000 hits is looking increasingly unlikely. 400 home runs, I think, is going to be tough at this point, too. Probably can get him to 1,500 runs. 1,500 runs batted in isn't going to happen, and I think even 500 stolen bases is going to be a challenge for him at this point. Would certainly love it if he's still a positive WAR player when all is said and done at the end of this season, but it does seem like he's falling off pretty rapidly, unfortunately. And taking a quick look at our team statistics, we have gotten a little bit lucky. Actually, we've gotten very lucky. You can see we're 23-12. Our Pythagorean record suggests we should just barely be over 500 because although we are second in the league or tied for second in the league in runs scored, we are ninth in runs allowed, which is a very unique situation for the Royals pitching staff to be in at this stage of the season. We have pretty much been one of the top handful of pitching staffs in the American League for over a decade at this point. So a little disappointing. Hopefully it's something that will get straightened out. But you can see at this point both the starters and the relievers' ERAs are in the bottom half of the league. So hopefully that will change over the next month or so. And some good news for the Royals here in mid-May on May 12th, 2036. The winning percentage is up to 700. And fortunately, Caleb Lagerwell ready to come off of the injured list. Given that he only pitched 2 games and he's 33 years old, we're going to have him do a start or two down in AAA just to shake off the rust. Obviously, the team is playing very well at this point. Want to have him back as soon as possible, but also want to make sure that he's as effective as possible and as healthy as possible when he is back at the major league level. You can see, no surprise, Willie Flores on the IL, although he's healthy now, has another 5 days left. He and Arrighetto Laziosi have both been banged up from time to time this season and both done short stints on the injured list, as you would expect from our second basemen, who are both fragile physically. And the good news here on May 17th, Royals continue to play incredibly well, 32-13 record, up by 10 games already on the Twins and 10.5 on the Tigers here in the AL Central. Javi Medina, the youngster, third in the AL with a .336 batting average. Ojeda still tied for the league in home runs, and Javi Medina and Jonathan Ojeda are 1 and 3 in the American League in OPS. Marco Estrada, the rookie, now tied for second in the American League with 6 wins. So a lot of things going very well. One of the things that we thought was going to be a potential issue is a potential issue. Bobby Witt Jr. out with a sprained ankle for 7 to 8 weeks. So once again, his season is going to be disrupted significantly by an injury. Honestly, at this point, it's not going to surprise me if he comes back as wrecked physically, given that for the last several years, he's basically had a month to 2 month long injury in each of those seasons. Had gotten the batting average up a little bit, I guess, to 227. Obviously not great, and still a negative WAR player this year. Does have 11 homers and 172 at-bats, so he hasn't been entirely unproductive for us, but I think while he's on the injured list here, we're going to start getting a view of what the future might look like without Bobby Witt Jr. Even though he's obviously going to be a drain on us, the point of this playthrough is to kind of see him through to the end of his career. So while cutting him or trading him away for anything to get that salary off the books is probably the rational decision, just trying to win games in the sim. He's our third baseman. He's our future Hall of Fame third baseman, most likely. And the point of the sim at this point is to see what the entirety of his career looks like. So he's going to be with us no matter what. But I'm not going to lie, getting to the point, depending on what he looks like when he comes back from this, where I might hope that he calls it a career at some point in the next couple seasons rather than having him linger through the length of that contract. But we will see what happens, but I'm going to put Bobby Witt Jr. on the IL. Fortunately, we're very close to Willie Flores being able to come back. Actually, he is able to come back at this point, so that'll work out perfectly. Going to put BWJ on the IL, bring Willie Flores back to the roster, and I'm assuming that we will be going with Flores at third base and Arrigato Leziosi at second base, but let's see what Crosby does. Yep, Leziosi leading off and playing second, and Willie Flores playing third base now with Bobby Witt Jr. on the injured list for the next couple of months. And clearly that will mean that it's pretty unlikely, I think, that Bobby Witt Jr. will be an all-star this season, given that he hasn't been incredibly productive and he's only played 40-some-odd games. So the perennial Gold Glover missed out on a Gold Glove last year and probably will never win another one. The perennial all-star, unlikely to be an all-star this year. And who knows? Our hope is that, he'll be healthy enough in the next couple of seasons that he'll at least have one more all-star appearance in him, but there's certainly no guarantees about that at this point in his career. And as we start thinking about a future without Bobby Witt Jr., Tony Fonseca is a guy that we've wanted to try to lock up to a long-term contract for a while. You can see he's a brilliant defensive shortstop. He's hit effectively in the majors over the course of his career, 84 OPS plus, 80 WRC plus, but certainly profiles at this point at the age of 26 as a below average offensive player. But he still is durable, and he still is an excellent glove. And unlike most of our other young infielders, he's willing to talk extension, average annual salary of close to $10 million a year through his age 34 season. I don't know that we want to give him that much, but I'm going to at least put an offer out there to him to hopefully get him locked up as a key defensive member of our team for the foreseeable future. And Fonseca was looking for almost $10 million a year for this 8-year contract. We're keeping it as an 8-year contract, but we're taking the average annual value down by about $900,000 a year to just a little over $9 million. I think it's possible he'll go for it. No, he's looking for more money than that, and I don't know that I want to give him $9.5 million a year over 5 years. Although that does take him into his mid-30s. Maybe there's something we can do here. He's looking for about $9.5 million for 5 years. We're coming back with $9.1 million over 5 years. We'll see what he thinks, and he's willing to think about it. So as not as long as we were initially thinking about with him, but it would still buy out the last 2 years of his arbitration eligibility at a average less than he's expected to get in arbitration at this point, and then have him for 3 seasons if we want him of his free agent years into his early 30s. So I don't think it's a total bargain, although he is so good defensively. I just don't love the fact that looking at his batting profile right now, it definitely seems like he's clearly a below average offensive player, which we've kind of always known, but he does look weaker than he has in the past. And given that he's 26 and we've been scouting him for a decade at this point, I think we kind of know what he is. But an average of less than $10 million a year for a premier defensive shortstop who's durable and pretty much out there for 150-ish games every year, I think is still a pretty good deal for us. And as I said, that class of young infielders of Fonseca, Flores, Alvarado, and Laziosi, who all came up together and now I'll have this season plus 2 more arbitration years before they're free agents. We've wanted to start locking up at least some of those guys, and now with Fonseca, we at least have one of them locked up, so our whole infield isn't going to be departing in a couple of seasons. And another injury for the Royals here. Bryce Hubbard, a longtime left-handed reliever, out 6 weeks with the rotator cuff strain. He's having a nice bounce-back year. Put up a 4.50 ERA last season. He's cut it almost in half to a 2.35 ERA this year over 23 innings. Although, honestly, you look at his Sierra, and he's kind of right where he was a year ago. So, maybe gotten a little lucky this season after getting unlucky last year, but certainly not lucky now that he's headed to the injured list. Fortunately, Caleb Lagerwell has now made 2 starts down in Omaha. Hasn't been incredibly effective, allowing 16 hits and 4 walks over 12 and a third innings. Pitched 111 pitches 2 days ago, but I think that it's time to bring Mr. Lagerwell back to the Major League roster. And we are going to put him into the starting rotation. Actually, we probably don't need to do that anymore because we've got our top 5 starters back with Estrada. So we can probably unforce all of them. Keogh's going to come out of the starting rotation most likely. See, he does have the ERA down to 4.91, which I guess is a little bit of progress. Negatively, he's still given up 16 home runs in 47 and 2/3 innings. So certainly seems that the fact that he doesn't throw all that hard and he doesn't have great movement on his pitches is going to be a limiting factor for the success of his career at the major league level. And some good news, we do have Fonseca locked up. He came back to us, signed that extension. So Tony Fonseca, the hope is he can put up a 75, 80, 85 kind of OPS plus most seasons. And if he does that with the excellent range and then the incredible error rating, arm, and turning double play skills that he has, as well as that strong durability, the fact that we've got him locked up for the next 5 seasons at a little over $9 million a year, I think is a pretty good signing for these Royals and definitely helps stabilize that infield defense going forward for us, particularly since when Bobby Witt Jr. is back, he does not have quite the same range at third base as he did a few seasons ago. So going to be even more dependent on Fonseca, hopefully making some plays there on the left side of the infield. And the Royals are still playing very well, but unfortunately, Mr. Consistency is making a second trip to the IL this season. Caleb Lagerwell with a herniated disc out for about 3 to 4 weeks. Came back from that first injury with normal injury proneness, but I'm getting increasingly concerned that he's going to end up more fragile physically coming off of all of these injuries given his age. But we'll see what happens. But unfortunately, Lagerwell's season, like Bobby Witt Jr.'s season, is definitely being negatively impacted by injuries. That being said, it's May 26th, and the Royals are still playing close to 700 baseball, so really don't have anything that we can complain about. And with the injury to Lagerwell, brought up Andrew Bonds from AAA, and looks like Crosby wants to move Chris Rutledge into the rotation, which I think is fine. You can see that Keogh, as a reliever, is still a 3.5-star overall pitcher. His stuff even better coming out of the bullpen, and he's got a nice arsenal for a bullpen pitcher. I still think that movement is going to be an issue for him, but we see him as a 4.91 ERA primarily as a starter. Hopefully, if we check on him a month from now when he's been purely coming out of the bullpen, maybe he'll be able to have gotten that ERA down a bit and been a little more effective in that type of role. And we've made it to June 1st. The Royals 41-18, obviously still in first place in the AL Central. You can see we're clear by the Twins by 12 games, clear on Detroit by 13, and clear on the White Sox by 14. So certainly seems like we are poised for hopefully another AL Central title. And in terms of the battle for the best record in baseball, we have it right now, but we're only up half a game on the Yankees, who are having an excellent season. You may recall that we faced them in the American League Championship Series last year and got by them 4-1. So looks like the Yankees and the Royals are potentially setting up to meet each other again in the playoffs, much like those late 70s and early 80s Yankees and Royals teams. Javi Medina, fourth in the American League in runs batted in at this point, and Marco Estrada, the youngster, tied for the league lead with 8 wins. So he's looking like a real strong candidate for Rookie of the Year with a 8-2 record and a 3.52 ERA at this point. Looking at the expanded standings, things have started to normalize a little bit. We're still up +6 on our Pythagorean expectations, but at least at this point, the Pythagorean expectations have us a pretty good team at 35-24. Taking a look at the full team statistics, things stabilized a little bit now. We are first in the American League now in runs scored, so our offense, as you can see, is first in the majority of categories and pretty strong in everything except drawing walks. Pitching still mixed, 6th in the American League in runs allowed, which is worse than we've historically been doing in this playthrough. And our defensive efficiency and zone rating are both horrible to mediocre. So hopefully we can start playing a little better defense going forward. But it's been a good season so far. After that 1-3 record in March, we've had winning percentages of over 700 in both April and May. So Royals are doing well as we try to position ourselves for not just an AL Central title, but hopefully home field advantage in the playoffs as we try to make a run at a three-peat. And the Royals continue to get a little banged up. Angelo Bolden, our starting catcher, going to be out 2 to 3 weeks with a bone bruise to his wrist. You may remember from the offseason that we did trade away one of our excess corner outfielders to bring on some catching talent, and we do now in AAA have Adam Fuchs, who's definitely major league ready. He was Miami's starting catcher last year in his rookie season. He's only hit .220 and 168 at-bats in AAA this year, but profiles as a hopefully somewhat close to average offensive player at the major league level with a great personality and a good glove. So he will be splitting time with Leo Aguilar over the next couple of weeks. And we're also waiting for an injury diagnosis on Willie Flores, our perennially banged up middle infielder. 250 batting average this year, 5 homers and 192 at-bats. Like the versatility of his glove, although his range seems to be trending a little bit in the wrong direction. And his bat, his profiling is maybe a average-ish to slightly above average major league bat. He's only 25 years old and he's been in the majors for several years now. But, with both him and Arrighetto Laziosi, who is at least having a bounce-back year, hitting .324 this year, do question the type of long-term commitment and the cost of the commitment we want to be willing to make to each of those guys, just given that they haven't proven to be the most durable players over the courses of their careers so far. And as we close into the halfway point on the season, Royals still playing well, 48-24 record. Fortunately, with Willie Flores, it was just a bruise to his wrist, and it was not an injury that necessitated any time on the IL. So that was a positive development. You can see we still do have a lot of players on the injury list. Lagerwell should be back very shortly. We're still dealing with weeks as far as Hubbard, Bolden, and Bobby Witt Jr., though, but hopefully we can get Caleb Lagerwell back into the rotation and keep him healthy the rest of the season. And Lagerwell is now back and healthy. Since he was only gone a few weeks, we're going to move him right back to the major leagues without sending him on a rehab assignment. Still showing his normal injury proneness, so that's a decent development given that he's had 2 stints on the IL already this season. You can see Hillman and Chivera have kind of stabilized their ERAs. Marco Estrada, the rookie, is now 10-2 with a 3.45 ERA. I guess the only benefit about being a follower is that you don't have to pitch the 5 innings to be able to be involved in a decision. And if you come on, after somebody goes an inning or 2, you're pretty much going to be in a good position to get a decision if racking up a bunch of wins is one of your big goals as a starting pitcher, which it probably is, even with new and advanced metrics. If you're a starting pitcher who's winning 16, 18, 20 games a year, you're probably still going to get paid, even if your secondary numbers might not be as impressive as those win totals. And another week in the books, the Royals 55-25, so continuing to play excellent ball. Bryce Hillman's been reaching out about contract extensions. He's the player we traded for from Pittsburgh a season and a half ago. 197 innings last year, although the 4.89 ERA was kind of high. 6-5 record this year with a 4.37 ERA. We've had the benefit over the last couple of years that Pittsburgh's been paying 40% of his contract, which was almost $15 million a year. As I mentioned, he is looking for an extension with us and certainly would be amenable to bringing him back, like that he's durable and a pretty effective major league pitcher with a good personality, a fan favorite. He's looking for $18 million right now. In the offseason, he was looking for about $21, and then when he reached out to us about a month ago, he was looking for $19 million. So I'm hoping to get him for a little bit less. Just don't know if I want to make the offer right now or to wait. I think I may make him a relatively lowball offer right now. He's looking for $18 million a year for 6 years with a player option. We'll offer him $15 million a year for those 6 years with a team option at the end. We will increase the bonus for a Cy Young Award up to $1 million. We'll increase the bonus for an All-Star selection up to $200,000 to throw him a little bone. I don't think he'll go for this at all, but at least want to kind of see where his head is as far as the thinking. I think if we're able to lock up a very durable, solid major league starter for that kind of money, it would be a good move for these Royals. and he's willing to think about it. So I think that would be a nice contract for us and for him, if we can lock him up for $15 million a year for 6 years. So Royals doing a little bit of business, or attempting to do a little bit of business during the season with the extension that we worked on for Fonseca a few weeks back, and now attempting to lock up Bryce Hillman because, as I've talked about with our pitching staff, don't know what's going to happen with Ben Borgman. He's been pretty healthy so far this year, 6-1 record with a 3.92 ERA. He's wrecked physically, but if he's able to have a healthy season, there is a chance that maybe he opts out of that contract next year, which probably wouldn't be the worst thing from a financial perspective from the Royals, but certainly would feel pretty good if we can go into next year knowing that we've still got Caleb Lagerwell, Eddie Chivera, and Bryce Hillman locked up at the very least. And Angelo Bolden ready to come off the IL, and Adam Fuchs has hit pretty well for us, 333 batting average. He's really been the starter while Bolden has been gone. So even though we're paying Leo Aguilar more money this year, we are actually going to send him down to AAA. His arbitration number for last year is 2.4 mil. For next season is potentially around 2.4 million. Clearly going down to AAA is probably not going to help his ability to make more money next year, but I think Fuchs is playing better right now, and he'll still presumably be the backup to Angelo Bolden, but I think that he deserves to stay up here. He's playing better than Aguilar at this point, and I like the fact that as I mentioned, we've got a third major league quality catcher in our organization now with Fuchs, and I think he's better than Aguilar right now. So Aguilar down to Omaha, and Fuchs gets to keep playing at the major league level as Bolden's backup. And one of our young outfielders, Mike McNeil, banged up with back tightness. Going to have a moderate impact for a week. Minimal hitting and throwing impact, but a moderate running impact. He's hitting 280 in the majors this year, so definitely producing from that perspective, although only 3 homers in 143 at-bats after he hit 15 in 184 at-bats last year. We are going to be cautious with him and put him on the IL. Really only because, as you may remember, we have Jorge Lebron down in AAA who hit 348 at the end of the season last year, and he's hitting 275 with 8 homers in 262 at-bats down in AAA this year. Really has nothing left to prove there, and he's unhappy that he's down there. He was our second-round draft pick back in 2030. Definitely has a big role on this team going forward, so we are going to bring LeBron up for at least the next 10 days or so to see a little more of what he can do at the major league level. Hopefully that will improve his spirits a bit. You can see his morale is now very good, so that's positive. Looking at the potential lineups, LeBron is going to be in as our starting left fielder against left-handed hitters, so at least he'll get a little bit of regular playing time there, and hopefully he'll get some pinch hit at-bats in games that right-handers start. Eventually between LeBron, Medina, Avelar, McNeil, and Vasquez as corner outfielders / DHs, we are going to have another choice to make this coming off season. We'll see how everyone produces. We'll see what everyone's going to make. The only thing we know for sure is that Alex Vasquez is going to be on the team. Victor Avelar is a guy who's been incredibly productive for us, but he may be someone to move on from this coming off season, or maybe we move on from McNeil, or who knows, maybe we move on from Funky Cole Medina or LeBron also. going to have a lot of decisions to make this coming off season, but we'll worry about those then. Right now, it's a big benefit for us that we've got so many good bats to put into our lineup when we do have players get a little bit banged up. And with the 56-26 record, 82 games into the season, owner Isaiah Moore has given us his mid-season review of our goals. Very excited by our performance. So are we. It's been a great season. And he wanted us to upgrade second base. He's very happy with Arrighetto Laziosi's performance because he's hitting .315 this year. The reason he wanted us to upgrade second base was that Arrighetto Laziosi hit just .211 last year, so we haven't actually done anything to upgrade that position. The player we have just happens to be playing better this year, so that shows a little bit of the fickleness of the owner goals, but it is what it is. A lot of potential expiring contracts this year, so we'll spend some time thinking about those in the coming weeks also. But we're going to try to sim through the rest of June, take a look at the international amateur free agents, and then call it an episode shortly. And it is a little bit funny that right after management was complimenting us on how well Arrighetto Laziosi was playing, he's out for 2 weeks with an oblique strain. So once again, the fragile nature of Laziosi causing some minor issues. You can see we've still got him and Bobby Witt Jr. on the IL. Bryce Hubbard should be back relatively shortly. And then Mike McNeil was just pure precautionary measure that we put him on the IL. Really just wanted to get an opportunity to see what Jorge Lebron could do at the major league level for a little bit. So we'll have to bring up another infielder from AAA and keep moving on with the season. And Bryce Hillman has signed that extension, so it's going to be going into his late 30s, which isn't always optimal, but he is a good, solid pitcher. He's durable. He goes out there every 5 days. He's a fan favorite with a good work ethic. I think it's a contract that hopefully will age reasonably well, but we've got him locked up at $15 million a year till he's 37, and then we'll have a team option for his age 38 season. So made a little progress on the business side of baseball in this first half of the year with the extensions for Fonseca and Hillman. So feel good about that. And our fragile infielders continue to get banged up. Willie Flores out again with a fractured finger for about 5 weeks. I think definitely what we've experienced with Flores and Laziosi and Witt Jr. this year kind of documents why I feel real good about that Fonseca contract, because he is a durable, excellent defensive shortstop, and if we feel good that we can be running him out there every day, even if we're kind of mixing and matching a bit at second base and third base because of the injury proneness of the rest of our team, at least hopefully he'll be a stabilizing force and a consistent presence in our lineup for the next several years. And we made it to July 1st. Some more hardware for Marco Estrada. Once again, the Rookie of the Month, which he also won in April. 3-0 record with a 4.50 ERA. For the season, the youngster is put up a 3.86 ERA over 105 innings pitched with an 11-2 record. So a brilliant rookie year so far from our number one draft pick back in 2031. Also going to check in on another former high pick, Dan Keogh, and see what he's doing. He's gotten the ERA down just a tiny bit to 4.83. So even though he's been pitching out of the bullpen more recently, that hasn't made up for the fact that he just doesn't throw that hard and just doesn't have great movement on his pitches. 20 homers allowed and 59 2/3 innings pitched. So looking increasingly unlikely that he's going to be a big part of our rotation going forward. So feel even better about the extension that we gave to Hillman, because just not sure where Keogh's going to fit into this pitching staff for the long term. Do feel like Marco Estrada, particularly as a left-hander, potentially does have a pretty important role for us in our rotation in the coming years. So that's definitely positive. And taking a look at the standings here on July 1st, Kansas City 59-28, best record in baseball, 678 winning percentage, up 13.5 games on the Twins. So our goals were at the beginning of this episode and the beginning of this season to win the AL Central and have home field advantage throughout the playoffs. And right now we're positioned very well to hopefully achieve both of those goals. Jonathan Ojeda following up his 51 home run rookie season with 24 so far this year, which is third in the AL. Javi Medina, just a brilliant year, 307 batting average, 22 homers, 70 runs driven in, second in the league in ribbies, third in the league in OPS. And you can see that Marco Estrada, the brilliant rookie, is second in the American League in wins. So with second-year players, Ojeda and Medina, and a rookie in Marco Estrada, the only Kansas City Royals that are among the top three in the key categories in the American League, our future is still looking pretty bright. Taking a look at team statistics, still the best offense in the American League with 466 runs scored, and you can see other than walks, we are in stolen bases. We are in the top three in every offensive category in the American League. So the offense has been exceptional, and the pitching staff is moving in the right direction. Have improved to fifth in runs allowed. We're fifth in both starter and bullpen ERA, third in ERA overall. So things are trending in the right direction for the Royals. Injury situation, Bryce Hubbard looks ready to come back. Mike McNeil will be ready to come back shortly. And Bobby Witt Jr. and Arrighetto Laziosi are both theoretically about a week away. So we should be getting some help here over the next week or two in July. Not going to be back to full strength because Willie Flores is going to be out until August. But if the injury situation gets a little less ugly, I think that's a positive thing for these Royals. We'll check in on Jorge LeBron. Has played a bit for McNeil, hitting 278, 5 hits in 18 at-bats. 5 home runs in 18 at-bats would be pretty awesome. 5 hits in 18 at-bats is certainly fine, but at least getting him a little playing time at the major league level certainly will have a decision to make when McNeil comes back. And presumably the 24-year-old LeBron will be going down because I just don't know who else we would send down. Javi Medina, as we've talked about, is having an excellent season. Alex Vasquez, 271 batting average with 17 homers. Velasquez is our center fielder, so he's not going anywhere, and he's also hitting 284. And then Victor Avelar hitting 292 with 20 homers and 60 runs driven in. So, and then, we've talked about Ojeda already. He was hitting 256 with 24 home runs. So between our corner outfield, DH, and first base spots, we've got a ton of good bats. So LeBron probably going to go back down when McNeil is healthy, but love having that insurance policy in AAA this year. And then obviously when we're thinking about next season, probably going to look to move on from somebody, but we'll worry about that in the off season. Right now we are focused on getting a big year out of these Royals and hopefully making another long playoff run. And it looks like a relatively uninspiring crop of international free agents this year, at least if you're looking purely at the potential ratings from our excellent scout Travis Lee. Willie Medrano looks like the highlight of the class. Shortstop, 17, almost 18 years old. Looks like he could be a effective offensive player, although he's going to strike out a lot and not walk all that much. Listed as a shortstop, but he's really a third baseman. You could play him at second if you needed to. He's 6'4", so you could play him at first. And you could actually play him in the corner outfield spots too. So at least a little bit of defensive versatility, good work ethic, good leadership, good adaptability. Probably a player who's going to develop pretty well. Third baseman Manny Quintero. He's a third baseman as far as his ratings, that's for sure. He could also play corner outfield, has got a nice arm, would be a decent right fielder, although he doesn't have great range. Certainly looks like he could be an interesting contact hitter. Not a ton of home run power, though. And then the last of the allegedly top prospects is another third baseman, Valentin Trevino. Profiles as a potentially solid major league hitter. You don't love playing him at third base, but you could. He's also kind of an average-ish corner outfielder, so don't love the class. Don't think there's anyone all that exciting out there. We are going to go ahead and we'll take a look at this catcher, Agustin Banales. Like his ability, not much of a hitter. We'll go ahead and throw an offer at Willie Medrano for the $5 million. Honestly, if he doesn't sign it with us, this may be one of those strange seasons where we just decide to move on and pocket the extra money, because this class of international free agents is pretty uninspiring at this point. But the Royals' 2036 season, however, has been pretty inspiring. As I mentioned, 59-28 record, 678 winning percentage. So we will find out in the next episode if we can keep the momentum going in the summer as the weather heats up, and hopefully the Royals will remain hot. Until then, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.